Hey everyone, welcome back to Brothers Trippin and Stuff, podcast where three brothers in three states connect to over football, pop culture, or whatever else comes up. I'm Aaron, coming to you from Kentucky, and I'm joined by my brothers Josh in New Mexico and Andrew in Utah. Today's episode is stacked with the ending of Andor Season 2. We didn't have any recent movies or shows that we've been watching, so we decided to start a little vent session, our picks for the worst movies or shows we've seen. And then we'll check in on the 2025 Chicago Cubs season thus far. Spoiler, Josh is our resident expert. The main event, and you could guess this was coming, we're going to go game by game through the 2025 Nebraska football schedule, predicting wins, losses, and probably going to, argue a few points along the way. As always, today's episode is proudly sponsored by Helmet Nation, and we'll tell you more about them later in the show. Let's get into it. Hey, brothers, how's everybody doing?
Aside from all technical difficulties, doing great.
Been amazing.
Yeah.
It's been amazing.
Been amazing. How's everybody, everybody's kids doing well? And how's Will and everybody doing, Josh?
And they're good. They just finished school and already causing tons of trouble. So
He graduated already? He's finished? Man, they grow up fast.
yeah,
Right?
He just skipped 6 through 12.
I don't blame him. I
Super
would have
well.
done that if I could have.
Right? Kieran graduated 6
mentally
months
I kinda
early, and
did
she was
anyway.
ecstatic. So, all right. So I think we all know where I'm going to go here with this terrible movies thing. So I'm just going to say it once again.
Let's define the criteria
parameters
of what. Or did we narrow this down to just to Tom Cruise movies or any movie?
It could be any movie, I think.
Any movie.
Because we were talking about the Mission Impossible movies during the
Yes.
what kind of brought it up.
Yes.
How bad some of them are.
Yes.
But we would still take a sponsorship from any of them if they wanted.
Absolutely. If they want to give us a shout out, we're down.
I mean, if the Final Reckoning wants to throw us a bone, I probably wouldn't say no.
Has that come out yet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay.
went and saw it.
Was it any good?
I mean, it's the Final Reckoning. So, yeah. No, I'm just
Is
kidding.
it because Cruise is almost ready to be in a wheelchair full time, or, because he's old?
I don't care what anybody says. Tom Cruise is freaking killing it still. I mean, like, I don't think of him like an Oscar winner, but the dude, like, he throws his, like, heart and soul into everything he does. And I got to give him credit for that. Like, he sells it, and he seems like a genuinely hard worker. He's got some kooky side stuff going on in his life, but as far as like his Hollywood life, yeah, seriously, I hope I'm in that good a shape when I'm that age.
No, I can get down with that. And don't get me wrong, like him owning a P-50 Mustang is like one of the coolest things on the planet, and then learning how to fly it like that, that's really cool. Like, I think that's amazing.
Josh, did you see that they filmed an end credit scene for Final Reckoning, but did not include it? And when asked why not, the director said,
there might be another.
I did not see that. I was looking.
There is a ninth one. Everybody's speculating a ninth one. Is it 9th or 10th? Another one.
The Final Reckoning.
This is really the final.
Really mean it this time.
The final reckoning. The complete end final reckoning. With possible.
That's dumb.
I have not seen the Final Reckoning yet. I saw the Dead Reckoning one. I did not see the Final Reckoning one yet, and I thought, watching that one, he might pass off the Mission Impossible character to that girl.
Yeah, I thought that was. Oh wait, no, it's James Bond is kind of doing that, trying to do that same thing where they.
Well, James Bond always goes through. I mean, you're James Bond for a while, and then they find someone else. But
yeah, but there was like the weird character that was, I don't know, just not like, I can't even remember which one it was that introduced a new female character, but it was like not anybody knew, and it just felt awkward. And I don't want that to happen with Mission Impossible because I care so much about this franchise.
Yeah. No, clearly. Anyway, so Aaron, back to you. What was the exact topic?
So you guys told me not to watch, 2, and of course my weird OCD nature required me to watch 2. Oh. And so I watched it.
So bad.
You were not lying. That was absolutely probably the worst movie I've ever seen.
wow.
No way, dude. There's way
No
worse.
chance. There's
Really?
no chance that's the worst movie.
Because it took my worst spot away from Adam's Family Values.
What?
That had been the worst movie I'd ever seen, and that was all the way back in like high school. And
I think you're doing a
it
disservice to
overtook Adam's Family
Values.
as the worst movie I've ever seen. So I don't know. I know there are some bad movies out there, but that one just was. Now, I will say this. I got all the way through 4. I've watched 1 through 4 now.
You've watched all 4 of the worst ones. The best ones start from like 4 or 5. I can't remember which one. There's like a Ghost Protocol. There's like a
him becoming
Rogue Nation. Rogue Nation is actually, I think, where it starts.
Nation
I think that's 5.
That's
if I'm not mistaken,
okay.
because Ghost Protocol was 4.
We told you just gotta persevere. That's
you said it. So
Some
I've gotta spend this next week, doing more.
It's a marathon. Keep going.
It is definitely a marathon with that.
Keep going.
Is
do it for America.
Frightening, but no, those. I mean, I thought 3 and 4 were definitely better than 1 and 2. I still feel like there's all these moments where like they're trying to be dramatic. And they're like, and it just, the slow looks or the, like, and then he's trying to be funny. And it's something like, it's a line that if you had the line in a Ryan Reynolds movie, it would be hilarious because Ryan is got personality and he's funny. But Tom Cruise delivers it like he's a cardboard cutout and, you're like eating bran flakes. So, it's not funny when he does it.
That does improve, I think. So, it gets a little funnier over time. And it helps when they introduce Simon Pegg.
Is it the second one?
A lot of it's because of the Benji character, which is Simon Pegg.
Okay. Because in like the second one, they overused the whole, well, then I wouldn't really be on vacation, would I? Kind of thing. I'm like, okay. You said it when you were on the top of the cliff at the beginning. You should have never said it again because it was funny the one time.
Also, he really was rock climbing in that scene.
I believe that. I believe that.
He was strapped to all sorts of harnesses. He wasn't free climbing.
He wasn't free climbing.
Like 8 different harnesses. No, he is not free climbing.
You should see. Have you ever seen? Who's the guy who did Free Solo? What's that guy? Aaron?
Alex.
I've seen that. I can't remember his name.
So they have him. They have him on like the Esquire or GQ or something YouTube where they have him watch different mountain climbing scenes and he comments on them, and that's one of them. And it's pretty funny what he's Alex Honnold. Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's right. That sounds right.
Yeah. He's like, freak, I'm screwing it up. I don't know. But he's just like, that was pretty sick. It's pretty funny. It's total garbage, but it's pretty sick. It's basically
that's funny. No, my only big issue with Tom Cruise, because I loved him, of course, in Top Gun, and I still have that movie memorized from the summer we moved to Utah because I watched that movie literally every day that summer because I had no friends. And
you remember when Mom walked in the makeout scene? Top Gun. Remember when she walked in on us watching that? She was traumatized. Yeah. More like, Mom,
I could totally see that.
It's rated PG. Literally, look at the box. It's PG. So it's not bad.
How is Mom, by the way? Is Mom doing all right?
She's doing okay. She's been better.
You just visited her, so
her broken pinky is about as purple as a purple crayon. It's kind of gross looking, but like she's got some road rash on her forehead. But she's in good spirits. She was hanging out like normal. She's got a broken finger. Yeah.
Good. So all right. Well, since we've nailed mine, what about you guys? What's your worst movies? They don't have to be a singular one. If you have a couple, you can just throw them out there as to what you think are really bad movies.
Josh, with your permission.
Permission denied.
I have a couple quick thoughts off the top of my head, and I'm just going to narrow this down to Tom Cruise's worst movies because worst movies ever is a long. That's a long list.
Just throw me a bone and give me like worst movie ever, and then do Tom Cruise. So
I didn't even
worst movie I've ever seen was G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra.
Okay,
it is unequivocally the worst movie you will ever see.
No,
Is
And
that live action?
It has
I
it
debate
has
this.
Joseph
I debate
Gordon-Levitt
this.
in it, who is
Yeah, it
freaking
did.
awesome. And
Yeah.
it is by far the worst. No, of all, it's the worst movie of all time.
I know it's so bad. No, but you know what? I'm gonna go toe to toe with you here, Josh. You know what's worse?
But
Or same level? Any Transformers movie after number 3, except Bumblebee. I'm not talking about.
what?
I'm not talking
Okay,
about the more
okay.
recent. Yeah,
What Transformers movie was it where it was like the
there's something
old
called Age of
the old
Extinction or something.
helicopter that was farting all the time, farting parachutes?
Yeah,
There was a stealth bomber or something like that. That's what
That
was
was
happening.
actually
Like-
2.
like
That
That
was
was
the
2,
second
wasn't
one.
it?
No way.
Yes,
Because
that was the worst
he's talking
movie.
about
That is terrible.
SR-71, the Blackbird that was in the
SR-71, yeah.
museum, and
My
the guy was
gosh.
like,
And it's like
and here's
coughing,
the
and then
thing.
he farts out parachutes, doesn't he?
That scene was horrible, but there were a couple of battle scenes in that movie that were bad A. They were awesome because you hear, like, they had the AC-130 gunships overhead and stuff. And
Yeah.
having been around while those things have been live firing and stuff above us, those things are awesome. And that is like,
Isn't that
as
the
an
first
infantry
one?
dude, no, that was a second one because they were dropped off in the desert and he's trying to bring Optimus back to life. It was the second one because
No,
the
that's
first
the
one,
first one where they're in the desert.
First one, Aaron.
It's
Yeah,
the
it
first.
is.
Yeah, it's the very beginning.
And that little scorpion guys get berries under the sand, and then he
Scorponok.
Oh yeah, I do have it backwards. Okay, all right, my
Anyway,
bad. My bad.
any Transformers 4 or 5 on in that series with Mark Wahlberg, even he, I'm sure, would tell you I can't.
Well, I saw
No
3
justification.
and hated the fact that Megan Fox wasn't in it, and then quit watching them.
Every male in America hated that Megan Fox was in it. But
Yeah.
regardless, she couldn't have saved it no matter what.
All right, so
I will
where's
tell
Tom
you
Cruise
this.
then?
Tom Cruise movie. I think that it comes to mind, and you guys can correct me maybe or remind me of something worse. The Mummy was.
It didn't have Tom Cruise in it.
Yes, it did. I'm not talking
No,
about
it had-
Brendan Fraser. Look up The Mummy right now. Look it
No.
up. No, do it right now. I'm not going to. No, we are not continuing until you guys
Pause.
look. He was going. Listen,
Pause.
he had signed a contract.
What?
Him and his creative team had signed a contract to do an entire series of monster movies. The Mummy was the first. Okay. And what happened was it bombed so bad, you guys, epically bad, and lost so much money they canned all of the rest of the series.
2017.
Yeah, I mean it was in theaters and everything.
Nick Morton is a soldier of fortune who plunders ancient sites for timeless artifacts and sells them to the highest bidder.
Anyway, that's almost like not even debatable how that might be his that's
I've
worst
never
movie.
seen it.
You should be grateful.
I am.
However,
Thank you.
let me continue this by saying the most underrated Tom Cruise movie ever is Collateral.
That is pretty
Collateral,
good.
I don't care what
With
anybody
Jamie
says.
Foxx.
It's a dang good movie, except his hair. I don't know why they gave him like white hair. A little weird. Aaron, have you seen Collateral?
It's good. It's pretty good.
It'll redeem your
All right.
it'll redeem your faith in Tom Cruise.
Listen, I love Top Gun Maverick, so like that's fairly recent, so I
I
liked it.
think pretty much
It was okay.
everybody who knows anything about movies would say that like Born on the 4th of July is one of his best movies, but I've never actually seen it, so I can't really.
I haven't seen that one either.
I
That's a
did
great-
like
seen it
Edge of Tomorrow.
once, but it was like way
Yeah.
long ago.
Edge of Tomorrow's decent. That's a good entertainment.
liked-
Emily Blunt though is like a goddess. Like she's just like anything she's in is like amazing, even if it's really bad. And she kind of salvaged that movie. Let's be honest.
Okay, I'll allow it. I didn't know we were doing Tom Cruise movies. The movie
Well,
that I
you don't
saw
have to.
recent.
You don't have.
No,
to,
I'm not
Josh.
gonna.
I just.
Yeah, I'm my own person, and I feel like. Anyway, just recently.
I'm proud of
This
you.
is not
all grown up.
This is not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it was like the worst that I've seen recently.
Literally the topic.
No, we didn't ever say the worst we've ever seen. It's the worst we've seen. There was no timetable put on this.
What is that? Aaron, does that even
It
make
could
sense?
have
The
been
statement he
worst
just
we've
made?
seen ... lately. All right, sorry. The worst that I've seen recently is this movie on Netflix, and I hated this movie because it's got Tom Hardy in it, and I love Tom Hardy.
Right?
He's an awesome actor. I loved him in Inception. I loved him in as Bane in Dark Knight Rises, which he often gets panned for. I freaking loved it.
Warrior was good. He was awesome in that.
This is my time. All right.
Sorry, my bad.
I'm just kidding. I haven't seen Warrior, but it's called Havoc on Netflix.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Dude, it
Couldn't
is
even
like
finish it.
an
That's a
ultra
very
violent, like,
visceral reaction,
oh,
Andrew.
dude, it's just so bad. It was like this callback to like these cop shows where there's corrupt cops and he's one of them and he's got to somehow try and redeem himself. But it's like ultra violent and somehow everybody in it knows how to fight like a friggin' Navy SEAL married a martial
It was
arts
an
master.
embarrassing
And
money
it's,
grab.
oh boy, it was bad. It was not great. But I will tell you this topic made me think of what movies have held up over the years. And I recently watched Cinderella Man again with Russell Crowe. Dude,
Mm.
that movie freaking holds up. And it is just a dang good movie.
Yeah. Won like all sorts of awards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my all-time favorite movie is Shawshank Redemption. So, like, I feel like that holds up.
Yeah.
So, I love that movie.
Yeah. So anyway.
All
All right.
righty. Well, let's move on here. So, getting into the Cubs, who won again today. They beat the Reds 7-3 and took that series after losing the first game of the series. And they continue to hold a slight lead on the Cardinals, although it looks like they're now up to four games.
Yeah, they're 4 games up. Cards lost today, thankfully. The Cards surprised me, and I can't believe they just keep winning. It's insane. I don't know how the Cards as an organization have maintained the success that they do because they're not the Yankees, they're not the Dodgers, they're not spending like it seems like maybe they are, but like I don't know, nobody really thinks of St. Louis just as a city anymore. And somehow the Cardinals just keep putting out teams that seem to overachieve, and it drives me nuts as a Cubs fan.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Historically, though, it's crazy because if you look at a lot of like historical stats, like number of World Series and stuff like that, St. Louis is like third or fourth out of all the teams in baseball. Like that's pretty crazy. They've won like 13 World Series or something, you know?
That is crazy.
And so I don't know how, they keep doing it either. It's been frustrating this year because, like they were expected to be like,
Bottom dweller.
yeah, they were expected to finish below Pittsburgh this year. And
Yeah.
that's clearly not going to happen because Pittsburgh sucks balls. So, I saw an article that talked about Pittsburgh. They should think about trading Skeens to get back like a bunch of prospects. And they made a case that the Cubs were the number one team they should look at trying to trade with. And they didn't obviously there were a couple of prospects that I was like, oh, I don't know if I'd like to see that. But what Skeens gives you overall, like, I think it would probably have been worth it for their suggestion. Now, I don't know if the Cubs would go for it or if the Pirates, they were saying it was unlikely the Pirates would probably do it, but that they should because they are bottom dwelling, absolutely terrible. And they're never going to pay Skeens what he's worth when it comes time for him to be a free agent. So they're not going to, pay him that money. So he's going to become a free agent. They're going to lose him. So they were saying trade him now and get as much as you can.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh, I swear, it seems like anytime they try that, they just never works out for them. Like anytime they get somebody who's good and they try that kind of approach, I don't know. Pittsburgh's in a bit of a black hole. I mean, it's not quite like Colorado Rockies black hole, but it is not good.
It's close. It's close to the Rockies. It's like maybe a step above, but that's it.
Well, the Rockies today became the first team to lose 50 games. They're 9-50 on the year.
Like when I was, probably back when I was in high school and it was before the strike that made me lose interest in baseball for a while. Somebody once told me that like you should look at baseball and just say to yourself, okay, we're gonna win 60 games, we're gonna lose 60 games. It's the other 42 games that matter in terms of your standings and how you finish. And last year we saw the White Sox, and this year we're watching the Rockies show us that you're not gonna win 60 games, and that's insane how bad that is.
Yeah. I also like struggle with that idea. The fact that the best teams barely maybe win 100 games. It's almost like there's never anybody who's above 700. And then we look at college football or pros, and it's like if well, at least college football, if you don't go undefeated, you don't have a chance. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously the ratios are completely different, 162 games, but just the fact that they barely, so many teams that make it to the playoffs barely win more than they lose is kind of,
What would be
I think that's
also,
what makes
Aaron? You
people
were
bored
really
about it.
close. The Cardinals have won 11 World Series, which is second most only to the Yankees in baseball, which is crazy.
That is crazy. But when was the last? Well, I guess they have won
Yep.
several within the last like 15 years, even.
I think they've won within the last 10 years, haven't they? Didn't they win one within 10 years? The last 10 years?
I
Yeah, I
think the
think
last one they won, they were also entered as a wild card, didn't they? That's just crazy.
do you guys
Sorry,
think?
sorry.
Let's say a big, like an Amazon or Apple or somebody came in and said, we're gonna like up the stakes with let's just say baseball, but you could do this with basketball too, because basketball has what a lot of people say it's just too many. It's just too many games. You play the same teams too many times, especially baseball. Of course, you can't shorten the schedule because of money. You're not making enough revenue. But if a big player came in and said, "We will cover any difference in revenue. We're going to cut the baseball season in half." Okay. Now games are like really important. Do you guys think it would change the percentage of the best teams, the winning percentages of the better teams, and the losing percentages of the worst? Do you think that would have anything to do with it, or do you think, in other words, is the longevity of the season part of the factor in Josh the issue you just brought up, or do you think it's just the nature of the sport? Period.
But I think it's just pure money. I think the rich teams spend way over the luxury tax and they don't care.
Well,
Unless
what
you're
I'm
the
saying is,
Cubs, who are deathly afraid of that for some reason, even though that would be a drop in the bucket for what the money they have. But like Yankees, Dodgers, the Dodgers spent $1 billion on two people.
but what I'm saying is, they still can't get the winning percentage up over 700. It will never be more than like 105 wins or 110 wins in a season. You see what I'm saying?
The
We're
record's
still going to have 50.
116, isn't it?
Yeah, the Yankees, I think.
No, it's the Mariners.
Oh, yeah, you're right. No, sorry. It is America.
Yep. The Mariners had a 116 win season and then lost in the second round of the playoffs.
And you would know.
I was living there, so it was painful for people up there.
Didn't they have Ichiro?
Yeah, I mean they were stacked. They had Ichiro, they had Edgar Martinez, they had they were stacked and then couldn't win in the playoffs. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, my point is just, even with all the money that the Dodgers have spent, for example, in the Yankees, they still can't get like an 800 win percentage.
Yeah, I
you
don't
know what I
know.
mean? And like in some of the other sports, it's like, well, like college football, it's like if you don't go undefeated, which you don't have to now, obviously, but before, it was like, well, if we don't go undefeated, we're not going to have a chance to be like in the BCS, when the BCS the title game or something.
Right.
And I know it's fewer games and the nature of the sport's different, but I wonder how that would change the dynamic.
If you want my honest opinion, if I had to guess, I would actually think it would hurt things the other way, meaning it would make the win percentages closer, and so the bottom teams wouldn't be as far back and the good teams wouldn't be as far ahead. So I actually think teams would be closer to 500
Yeah.
throughout the whole thing. That would be my guess with baseball, because it would allow teams like you might think you could run with a depleted or not a great squad, but you might get 50 games out of them and set yourself up and then, maybe skate through the last 30 and get into the playoffs and be better somehow. Like, so if you had a Skeens and he was pitching and then if Skeens isn't like, I'm just using the Pirates as an example, but if Skeens isn't pitching, I don't know, what is the average number of starts in a season? Like 20 or 30, somewhere in there, something like that.
More than it's 20.
It's not much more than 20. I think it's
like
the
between 20 and 30.
Yeah, it's so if you know that you're only going to be starting 10 or 11 times, then you might throw Skeens for more innings and you might throw your best stuff, your guys, instead of limiting them, like especially nowadays where they handle pitchers and they're like, oh, if you give us 5, 6 innings, you're out. Even if they look good, a lot of times we'll still pull them and then put in your relief and stuff. So it would change the structure of your pitching staff and everything else, and you might throw guys. So like if you had a Skeens and you were the Pirates, you might do better in that situation where the season's shorter. Where the length of the season helps you is if you do spend money like the Dodgers and, who by all accounts, the Dodgers have been like dealing with a boatload of injuries, and yet they're still leading their division because they've spent the money to have those guys. And that's where like Pittsburgh, who doesn't spend money, can't hang because they don't have that kind of depth. But then if you shorten the season, Pittsburgh might be able to make do with with less
depth. Yeah. You shorten the time window for people to get injured, and so you end up.
Yeah. I mean, that's just my thought. Obviously, I'm no expert, so,
Yeah. It's interesting. Overall, I'm really surprised and pleased with how the Cubs are doing. I did not think, based on the way that the front office was seemed like they were kind of implementing the same stuff that they've been talking about the last couple of years, where they're just saying, we don't have the money, blah, 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 which is all just a bunch of crap in my mind. I am shocked that they are where they are, and I love it.
Yeah, no,
I'm a little nervous about right now because they've got so many pitchers that are hurt, and like 3 of their starters are hurt, and they don't seem to be in any rush to like fix that problem. They're just kind of like riding the wave and seeing what happens. I have no insider information whatsoever on any of that. It's just like when you lose your top 2 pitchers and then others in the starting rotation spend time injured, you'd think you'd want to have a backup plan and get some other guys in here, but they just haven't. They haven't done that. They've brought others up and they've mixed and matched, and we'll see how long that lasts. I was a little nervous over the first half of, the first couple games in the Reds series and the series before that, where they weren't hitting quite as much. They still somehow pulled out the wins, but like they were much closer. And the rest of the season, they have more games than any other. They've outscored the next team in all of Major League Baseball by like 30 runs. I mean, it's crazy.
It's a lot.
It's a ton. And they have more games where they've scored over 10 runs than anybody else. Like to see that start to cool off, I was like, crap, you have that cooling off while your pitchers are hurt. Like that's a recipe for trouble, but we'll see. We'll see.
That's why I was like paying so much attention, because I thought against Colorado, they were in Chicago, right? Or were they in Colorado? Either way, I was like, I was waiting for them to just bomb the Rockies. Like I was waiting for them to go up there and we'd have like 3 games that were like 12-3, 9-6, whatever, and just like rip those guys. And they have all 3 of those games. Close. They won them all, which is fantastic. But they won like 3-1, like 2-0 or something, and then 4-2 or something like that. I don't know. It was really close games. And so I was a little nervous. And then of course the first game against the Reds, in Chicago, they got kind of blitzed, it looked like, and they won a really close one yesterday, 2-0, and then just absolutely, I mean, today was a much better game with 7 runs, so that felt good to get back up that high. So, but a couple of notes on players that I've enjoyed, like, so when I went to the game in Chicago, Shaw was playing third base and he was struggling, and they sent him down. And like 2 weeks later, I caught him because I caught the Iowa Cubs, the AAA team, playing here in Louisville at, against the Bats. And so and it was crazy because he was still struggling. Like his batting average was like 6 when they were there, and he struck out 3 out of 5 times he was up and got out every time when we watched the doubleheader that day. It was a doubleheader because of rain. And so
for the fun of it.
What's that?
Not just for the fun of it?
Nope, not just for the fun of it. Anyway, then he gets called back up, and I was like, holy cow, that seems really fast from, I just saw him still struggling down in AAA, and he looks like he's been playing really well, so I'm happy for him. I hope he kind of nails down that third base spot and just keeps it, because his fielding's awesome. Like, he's quite...
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I think that's, one of the things, obviously that he does great. So he just needs to make sure he has a bat, and can do something. And then I got to tell you that Pete Crow Armstrong has just been, he's made me like remember how much fun El Mago was when he was running around doing his thing. Like Pete like strikes me as the same kind of deal. He's just fun to watch. Like that guy can make any play in center field, and his power is crazy. Like I didn't realize he had that kind of power, and he's just been bombing the baseball. So he's been fun to watch.
Yeah, he was 3 for 4 today, I think.
Yeah,
Matt Shaw is 1 for 9 at his last 3 games. So Matt Shaw is there for his defense, and they didn't have anybody really playing as a solid third baseman. So his last 7 games, his average is 261. His last 15 games is 314, but his last 30 games, his batting average is 238. So he is still struggling at the plate a bit.
right,
Though he did have that walk off, I thought maybe that would kind of
right.
spark some progress there for him. But
Well, and sometimes it still can, like even because was that his one hit in the last 9? Because wasn't that walk off like fairly recently?
I think so.
He Yeah, I mean, sometimes, it may not show like right away, but that could still spark him and, maybe his batting picks up as we get through the season some more. But yeah, at third base, he's got a glove, man. That guy, he can cover. So
Yeah.
how's, I haven't heard, Josh, have you heard how, is it Amaya? Was that the other, yeah,
Catcher.
the catcher? He got hurt. Is he still out?
I think so. Today was McGuire. I don't know what Amaya's status is. I could look it up, but I don't care that much.
Well, they're breaking the other catcher, Steele. Is that right? No. Who am I
Steele was the
thinking of?
pitcher of it's
No, not Steele.
gosh, I can't remember his name either.
Yeah. Anyway, he's been raking. Like he's been fun to watch too. So
Carl Kelly?
Kelly,
Carson
Carson
Kelly.
Kelly. Yeah, yeah. He's
I
been
don't
fun
know
to watch.
his I don't know if he's still raking or what. He was killing it for the first while, but I don't know where he's at right now. I haven't seen him recently.
Yeah,
Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see. It'll be fun to watch to see what happens over the next.
definitely. Yeah, I'm excited. I haven't been excited. I haven't been this excited about Cubs baseball. Just not because I don't get excited about it, but last couple of years they've by this point in the season they've already been middle of the pack or lower, and it's like so this is really exciting, and they actually are what a half game out on like the best record in baseball almost at this point. Like I think they're close.
Yeah, they're tied with the Mets. They're just ahead of the Dodgers by like half a game.
It's the
They're
Tigers that
ahead
I
of
think they're
the
behind, right?
yeah, they're ahead of the Yankees. Yeah, but it's Detroit.
Yeah, yeah. Which is bizarre. When was the last time Detroit baseball was
Yeah,
any good?
seriously. Anyway,
All right. So just wanted to let you guys know that we are brought to you by Helmet Nation, your go-to source for officially licensed NFL and NCAA football helmets. Whether you're a fan of the mini helmets, full-size reps, or an authentic Rydell Speed or Speed Flex for your shelf or office, they've got you covered. Every helmet is officially licensed and built with fans in mind. Best of all, you're supporting a veteran-owned small business while showing off your team pride. Visit helmetnation.com and pick up your favorite team's lid today. So, all right. I don't know about you guys. So I realized just pre-show here as I was going back through this that for the first couple of these notes that I sent you guys, for some reason, my research showed all the quarterbacks were throwing the same number of yards and the same number of touchdowns. So I went back and corrected that. But
I didn't even bother looking through that. That was too much freaking information.
I just tried to pull some stuff together that I thought would be helpful, for everybody to kind of look at going through stuff. Um,
I think what we
so
should
we've
do
got
is just go through it and like, what does your gut tell you? Is this a win or a loss? That's
Yeah, I'm down with that. So we'll start with Cincinnati. That's August 28th, which is, I believe, a Thursday night, actually, which is kind of weird. 9 p.m. at Arrowhead in Kansas City. By the way, the Bussin' with the Boys guys are trying to challenge the Kelsey brothers and the New Heights podcast to do some kind of Cincinnati/Nebraska thing at that game. If anybody's interested, no free shout outs, Will Compton. And anyway, so that would be fun to watch if anybody's interested. Anyway, Cincinnati's led by Scott Satterfield. They were 5-7 last year, 3-6 in the Big 12. Obviously, did not make a bowl game. Their quarterbacks, Brendan Sorsby, threw for 2,800 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. They brought in some receivers, like 3 different receivers in the transfer portal, but their portal class was only ranked first by 247 Sports, and their recruiting class was first by 247. So, what are you guys' thoughts? Win or loss on Cincinnati in Kansas City?
Huskers have to win this game.
247. Who do we appreciate?
Like, it doesn't matter who shows up for Nebraska. It doesn't matter who shows up for Cincinnati. Nebraska has to win this game.
Agreed.
I mean, you cannot start 2025 with a loss to Cincinnati on a neutral field.
Agreed. Because you'll kill all your recruiting momentum in a moment.
Everything, all the momentum. So, to me, I do think Nebraska's going to win. I actually kind of feel like this could go the way of like Nebraska versus Wisconsin last year. Like it could be like a 3-touchdown victory for Nebraska. I think there's enough talent disparity between the two teams that it actually and I wouldn't be surprised if they won by 3. But right. I think it's going to be at least a 2-touchdown victory.
Yeah. I definitely think Nebraska's going to pull this one out. Cincinnati's good enough that I think they make me a little nervous. Yeah, Satterfield's been around a while. He was here at Louisville before he left for Cincinnati. That was kind of a weird deal, and I think Louisville fans were glad to get rid of him. You know, I don't know. His overall record's pretty solid. He's 84-64, which is 568, but winning percentage. But I don't know if Cincinnati can hang, you know, athlete wise, and if this offensive line is what, you know, we're hearing from Rule and those guys, you know, then I think we should frankly just try to mash them a little bit running wise. Like, I don't know if we should unleash Dylan on this stuff. You know, I think we should really try to hand it off to Emmett and just, you know, like come at him, you know, like make it a physical game, like intentionally. Like if I'm Rule, I'm going to tell the guys going into that game, let's get after him physically, defensively, offensively, offensive line, be ready to just mash the ball at these guys and let's put that on them, you know, because then you can hold back some stuff that you don't want, you know, to show off, you know, to others anyway with Dylan and in your throwing game, you know, and stuff. I mean, that's what I would look to do. So I think we're all agreed we're going with a W in Cincinnati then, or with Cincinnati.
Correct.
So the next two, I think you know, we don't even really need to go over these games. We have Akron in Lincoln on September 6th. That game's on BTN. And they've only played once because another game was like lightninged out.
Was that Scott Frost's first game?
Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh,
yeah, it was supposed to be his first game.
For his whole tenure.
Yeah, it really did. But they've only played one other game. Nebraska won it. Akron's been terrible, you know, forever. Joe Moorhead's the head coach there. His overall winning record is 22-40. They're just not going to be able to hang, and I don't expect anything out of them. And then Houston Christian, they don't even have a quarterback right now. As I was doing my research, their quarterback actually left to transfer to Ohio State and is now like number 6 in the Ohio. Yeah, the kid left. Like he took off, and he's got a weird last name. I forget what it was because I didn't write him down, but it's like Linkletter or Blackletter or I don't know, something like that. And he's now at Ohio State, buried on the depth chart behind like, you know, 5, 6, you know, like 5 or 6 5-star guys. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why would you do that? But anyway, but Houston Christian, I believe they're still FCS as well. So I don't even think that they're an FBS team. So obviously that one, count that as a W. So here's the big one, the first big one. So September 20th in Lincoln. So they've got 4 home games in a row, Akron, Houston Christian, then Michigan. That'll be a 3:30 Central Time game on CBS. This is huge. Michigan's head coach is voluntarily missing this game as, you know, as part of his suspension from, you know, the Sharon Moore, from the whole thing. Yeah, whatever. I don't even know what to call that stuff. But anyway, I find it a little bit disrespectful that he's going to take these self-suspended games and he's not going to just do it the first couple of games of the year. He's like, because he would miss the Oklahoma game and he's a Oklahoma alum. So he's like, nope, I'll miss the Nebraska game. I'm not worried about them. And so if I was Matt Rule, I'd be playing that respect card all week pretty hard. They also do not know their quarterback at the moment. Everybody, I think most of us expect it to be Bryce Underwood, the 5-star kid who was the number 1 recruit this last recruiting cycle. He's out of Detroit, so he's a Detroit kid. On a side note, by the way, with Helmet Nation as our sponsor, Helmet Nation did helmets for Bryce Underwood's high school this last year, just so you know. So Bryce Underwood is likely carrying around a Helmet Nation mini helmet somewhere for his high school.
I bet he takes it everywhere.
I'm sure he like sleeps with it. Actually, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so he's expected to be the starter, but they do have Jaden Davis, who was there last year and had gotten an offer from Tennessee. That was a pretty significant NIL offer and stayed at Michigan. And then another guy named Mikey Keene is coming. He transferred in from Fresno State. Some people seem to think that Mikey might start the season and then Bryce take over if Mikey struggles, because Mikey has played a bit at Fresno.
What
But
did he
we'll
do
see.
at Fresno State?
I did not look that up, but I think he was solid. Let me look at here real quick.
If Michigan took him, I'm sure that was.
Well, I mean, if a guy can transfer from Houston Christian to Ohio State, you know.
Houston Christian's super underrated, dude.
Yeah, don't sleep on them.
Yeah, don't sleep on him. Let's see here.
I'm really hesitant to call a victory in this game. More because of the history of these two teams.
They have played 10 times. Nebraska's won 4, Michigan's won 5, and there was one tie. So they have played 10 times.
Part of me just thinks until Nebraska just actually proves their ability to win these games, these bigger games. They've come so close so many times, and they just haven't pulled it out. They always found a way to lose. I mean, I can't, obviously a different year, a different team, but even still under Rule, there have been too many of those games where it's like they've
Well, the last time they played,
victory.
they got trounced. That was in Rule's first year. And that was the infamous Rule. They got trounced. Rule said, we're practicing on Sunday, brought all the guys in. I thought that actually was a good thing, and I thought it helped with that season 2 years ago. It didn't quite get them to a winning season, but I thought that was a good move. Previously, though, I mean, we've had some success against Michigan. You know, Pelini played them a couple of times. I believe there was a bowl game where they beat them pretty decent, and then another time, so it was like early on in the Big Ten where they played Michigan pretty well. I'm with you. I'm hesitant to call that game, both for the reasons you guys have mentioned. So like right now, I'm not sure what to call that. Definitely a game that could go either way, I think. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, we have to see it. Like, I think that's the thing. All Husker fans are just waiting to see it happen, you know, at some point, to have Nebraska just go to a game and actually, like, you know, have a great year or a great game, you know, where they actually play with and beat a team that they've been
close out a difficult team.
Yeah.
Close out a difficult team that might be a little bit better than you on paper. They just have not beat a single one of those teams.
Yeah. And I don't even know if, like, frankly, like with the losses to both the NFL and, you know, transfer portal and stuff, I'm not sure Michigan's necessarily better than them, you know, personnel wise on paper, but it's a matter of getting that monkey off your back. Like, they still, like, beating Wisconsin, though, I think was big. It would have been better had they also beaten Iowa last year, and then I'd feel a lot more confident. But I am expecting, again, like I'm expecting much better special teams play out of the Huskers, like with Eckler back in Lincoln. And I think special teams play alone could have won us 2 games last year, you know, the Iowa game in particular. And so if we can just improve that and then, you know, I don't know. I don't think it's an automatic win, but I am feeling cautiously optimistic about this game. And so I don't know if I would necessarily call it, like, if I was betting on it, but as you know, if we're just doing this, I'm going to actually say that I think the Huskers will win. And then you asked about Mikey Keene. He threw for 2,900 yards at Fresno with 18 touchdowns and 11 interceptions and had a QBR of 47.6, which was 92nd in the country.
So killing it.
Yeah.
I think I'm just going to put this. Yeah, I could see Nebraska hanging with Michigan for sure. But until I see it happen, I'm going to put it down as
well, we almost saw, you and I, Andrew, almost saw the last time that they had a real shot at Michigan, you know, and that was crazy up until that last fumble. They were in that game, man. That was so electric. Do you remember the between third and fourth quarter when they turned off the lights and did the whole, you know, what is the song they were
Thunderstruck.
playing? Thunderstruck. Yeah. Thunderstruck. Do you remember that, Andrew? We were so hyped. The whole stadium was so hyped. Like it was crazy. And they were in that game all game. And then they have that one stupid fumble. It was just unreal.
Yeah, that was,
well, and they let a free rusher come. Like it's like, here it is. They've been playing great all day, and then on that play, they let a guy run free, and Martinez has got to try and dodge him, and he ends up fumbling. And it's just like, my word, So
I think this is the year they're going to get over the hump. I'm hopeful of that. I don't really, I don't know. I don't have much to base that on because every year hope springs eternal, but
right.
But I think if you're going to get over the hump, you got to get over the hump. And I think this is the year they'll get over the hump. Because if they don't, it's like, what's changed? Is anything changing? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think that's this is one of these games where Michigan doesn't come off as so overwhelmingly good to me that Nebraska can't beat them. And I think,
keep in mind, as bad as Michigan was last year, they beat Alabama and Ohio State.
They also did drop a number of guys to the NFL. Like they had some big time talent. Yeah. Colston Loveland's gone. Their entire D line, I think, is being replaced. They don't have a quarterback, and their quarterback situation was garbage last year. So that might be a symptom of coaching.
Talent really means much anymore because of the transfer portal.
Right.
It does. It certainly does. I agree. In some cases.
I agree for sure.
But yeah, the quarterback thing is up in the air for them. We should have the quarterback advantage.
The only other thing I'm going to say is the way I'm looking at this game is kind of how I'm looking at like how they responded against Colorado last year. It's going to be that first huge game in Lincoln. They better be 3-0 going into it. It's going to be a massively hyped game. And like I saw an interview recently with Travis Hunter, and he said the loudest place that he played, the loudest and most hyped place he played last year was in Lincoln. He said the place was crazy, and that was the toughest game.
That was the best half of Nebraska football they've played. And
Agreed.
For sure.
And I'm kind of expecting that to be the case against Michigan. I really
that first half was so good they didn't have to play in the second half, and they didn't play in the second. Like,
Colorado really didn't either.
No, they didn't. But Nebraska didn't do anything either, and they didn't have to. That's how good the first half was. But
yeah. Agreed. Well, that'll be a great game, and hopefully it'll set us up for our game that we're going to the next week, October 4th. Michigan State will be in Lincoln. We do not have a game time yet on that or channel, but it'll be Saturday. I guess, actually, there's 3 slots. I didn't write it down. So it could be an 11 a.m. game, a 2:30 game, or a 3:30 game, something like that, depending on what channel we're on there that the game's going to be on.
Or a 6:30 game or a 10 o'clock game.
It's definitely
one of those.
Kind of up in the air. Michigan State is led by Aiden Childs, who transferred from Oregon State with his head coach, Jonathan Smith, who, they were 5-7 last year. His overall record as a head coach is 39-42. Nebraska and Michigan State have played 12 times. Nebraska's won 9 of those, and Michigan State 3. Aiden was 59% completion percentage, threw for 2,400 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. I would expect that he'll be better than that, depending on who they have. They lost 44 players in the transfer portal, however, which I thought that's a huge number. So that'll be interesting. Do
they have a running back? Because Jonathan Smith just runs.
Nothing came up. I'm sure they have somebody, but it didn't come up like as a notable player.
They're leaving that spot blank.
So when I was doing my research, I was kind of just looking for names that would pop, and a running back did not. Receiver Nick Marsh, and then tight end Jack Velling. So those guys came up, but running back wise, it didn't seem like that was huge.
My only concern, this could be a bludgeoning. Nebraska could just bludgeon Michigan State in this game. However, listen, what if Nebraska beats Michigan by 1 or by a field goal the week before? I mean, it will be a celebration like they just won the Natty or something for a week. I mean, 3-0 or 4-0, probably 4-0.
4-0.
Most likely, right?
Most likely, yeah.
And I worry, could they handle success in that scenario? Now, if they lose to Michigan, I think it actually really could be like, we're going to take this out on
Michigan State,
Spartans
right?
and just annihilate them, because I just see a dearth of. A lack of talent? A dearth of talent? Is that the same
A
thing?
dearth.
Yes, that's a
Dearth.
lack. Dearth is a lack of.
Dearth.
Yeah,
I think it's
I
dearth.
just don't. I don't think Michigan State is in any capacity going to be able to hang with Nebraska. But I could be wrong for sure. But that's my thought. Is just what's going to happen the week before and how's that going to affect them.
Mm-hmm. That's my one concern, and I would be even more concerned if that game against Michigan State, like if we weren't going and it was, because we picked a different game and the game was in Michigan, I would be much more worried for them going on the road.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I agree.
so the fact that they're at home, thankfully, I think is a positive. And I think that is my one concern as well is what do they do with success if they beat Michigan? How do they handle going into the Michigan State game? So that'll be interesting. Next up on October 11th is Maryland. Sorry, did I skip you, Josh?
Yeah,
I think it's a win.
My
That's it.
bad.
I just noticed I was looking at their roster though. They've got Alante Brown. Isn't he the guy who used to be at Nebraska and transferred away?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a receiver,
That'll
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think he's a fast dude, but I mean, I'm not saying that because it worries me. I'm just saying it's interesting because who knows?
It is interesting because
you want to tackle those guys a little harder usually.
Right? Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think they're going to win.
it's
I think
interesting that he
Nebraska's
didn't
gonna win.
come up with anything when I was doing the research. So I wonder if he's somebody that's really going to, that they're counting on or that, they'll do anything with. And Aiden Childs is a guy who runs. Like he uses his legs a lot more, and I think that Nebraska's D line is going to be. It's going to be a different makeup with Keona Davis and Riley Van Poppel, and then the D ends. It's not going to be a team guys who are crushing people up the middle, but I think they're going to be more athletic. I think they'll be able to run sideline to sideline better. So I am a little less worried about guys taking off and running on them, because I think we'll be athletically able to, track those guys down. So that'll be interesting. So like I said, October 11th is Maryland. That is in Maryland. I don't see any issues here personally. They also have a transfer from UCLA at quarterback, Justin Martin. Neither of their quarterbacks have started for them. One's a freshman who just got recruited, was a 4-star kid. And then Justin Martin, who transferred from UCLA and has one start at UCLA and no real discernible stats. Anything. So I don't know that.
Call that a dub.
Yeah, they should beat them. Their transfer portal class was 34th. Their recruiting class was 25th. That's pretty solid. But they seem to get some decent recruiting classes and then just never do anything with it. It's bizarre. So next game after that is one that worries me. If I'm being completely honest, we're on the road again. It's in Minneapolis. It's against Minnesota. I was shocked to learn that in the series between Nebraska and Minnesota they've played, let's see, what is that? 64 times. And Minnesota has won 37 of those. Nebraska's won 25, and there were 2 ties. That kind of blows my mind. I did not realize Minnesota had that big a lead on, because
Well, we haven't beat them in ever.
It's been it's been a while. I think it's
was the last
5
time they won.
Isn't it 5 times? Like 5 times in a row now that we've lost to them?
Yeah.
It's insane.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah, it's definitely embarrassing. They will have again another team without a quarterback who's had like a season's worth of, so their quarterback will have whatever, he's gotten for the course of the season. Looks like they're thinking a kid named Drake Lindsay, who's a redshirt freshman, is expected to start. But they have 3 other guys who are also in the thing: Jackson Collick, Dylan Whitkey, and Max. I'm not even going to attempt to say his last name. But they run at us. They're usually physical. This game does make me nervous just because of that history and because PJ Fleck makes Coffee nervous with his, craziness. They were 8-5 last year, 5-4 in the Big Ten. His overall coaching record is 88-61. At Minnesota, it's 58-39. And they're going to want to be rowing that damn boat. It'll be interesting. What are you guys' thoughts on it?
I'm calling a Husker victory in this one.
Nice.
Yeah, the Minnesota victories have been the last 4 have been by a touchdown or less. beat them in 2018. I think that was Brown 53-28. That's what Nebraska. That's what we thought Nebraska would look like.
Right. Yeah, and I remember that game.
And
it was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I just gotta I just think it's gonna happen.
I would agree. It still makes me nervous just because of the history of it and everything and stuff. It was Rule's first game. We watched that at Andrew's house. Frustrated the garbage out of us while Utah was beating the tar out of Florida. So
Wait, it is in Lincoln?
It is in Minneapolis. It's in Minnesota.
Minneapolis, okay.
Yeah, it's in Minnesota.
I'm still calling it a Nebraska victory.
So it's on Fox. It's already set to be on Fox. It's going to be a night game, 8 o'clock Central Time, on Fox. So it's going to be crazy. The next game is Western in Lincoln.
What are we
25th.
at so far here for our record?
So far, we're either 7-0 or 6-1 based on the Michigan game, and we all think that they have a pretty good shot at the Michigan game. So we're 7-0 at this point, going into Northwestern. Then we hit the tough stretch in the last 4 games, which will be interesting. Northwestern, I think, we'd better get this one. That's all I'm going to say. Surprisingly, this series, by the way, is closer than I thought because Nebraska and Northwestern have played 16 times, and Nebraska's won 9, and Northwestern's won 7. That shocked me as well. I did not realize.
Sucks.
Yes. Northwestern was 4-8 last year. They have a new transfer quarterback. He came from SMU. He was the backup kid to Jennings, a kid named Preston Stone. His only stats were 421 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception through a 60% completion percentage. I don't really expect them. They got a bunch of transfers that came up from smaller schools. So all their transfers have come in, looks like, or not all, but like a big chunk of them have come from, like South Dakota State, Liberty, Jacksonville State, things like that. And they lost a bunch of guys as well. So their transfer portal was rated 68th by 247 and their recruiting class 66th. So I think we can all agree Northwestern should be
a win.
Should be bludgeoned.
They were so good for so long was obviously because of coaching.
Yeah.
And Coach Braun, seems like a great guy. He's got a good looking beard, nice jawline. I'm sure he's a good coach. Nobody is intimidated by these teams.
Yeah.
And that whole
the crazy thing is they were 8-5 the year before. So his first year they were 8-5. Last year they were 4-8. His overall record is the same as Rule's at Nebraska, 12-13 at Northwestern.
That's a kick to the crotch. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But do you think he won? Do you think they won that many games the first year because he still had some good players from the previous coaching staff, or no? I don't know.
I think that's definitely a part of it.
That's really interesting. They've never had good quarterback play. It's just been run and let's beat you by 3 with the defense.
Right.
It's got to be a W for Nebraska. It's like Nebraska really has to stack wins on wins this year,
right,
and learn how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a crucial game to do that.
This is their growth curve. Yeah.
I don't think they'll be undefeated at this time. Whether that's Michigan or somebody else, I have a hard time thinking they'll be undefeated.
Yeah, I agree.
It'd be great if they were, but they've never shown they can do that yet. And so,
right.
So, but regardless, I think this game is a big deal.
Yeah, this one for sure. So far out of the 8 games that we've talked about, I mean, to me, the ones that I think absolutely have to be W's, or that you can make a significant statement and bet safely on are there's Cincinnati, Akron, Houston Christian, Michigan State, Maryland, and Northwestern. And then Michigan and Minnesota would be the 2 games that might be a little more iffy. So hopefully they'll just do what you said and stack wins. The next one becomes interesting. It is USC on November 1st. They will be in Lincoln, can hope for an early frost and, some early frozen weather to freeze the Southern California boys. But Jaden Maeva is their quarterback. He came in, started the last half of last year, 3, 4, 5 games, something like that. I think it was 5 games. They went 4-1 in those games. He threw for 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 60% completion percentage. last year at USC. He obviously had a great year at UNLV the year prior. That's what got him to USC.
Here's an interesting note.
So,
Nebraska's never beat USC.
yeah, I saw that as well. Ever. They are 0-4-1. That is insane to me as well. It's weird that they've only played 5 times, but to be 0-4-1 against USC kind of sucks.
Should have beat them last year.
Yeah, they should have.
USC
That game was
not like.
Well, and the crazy thing is I actually felt like Nebraska really played a lot better in a lot of ways in that game. That was the first game with Holgerson calling the plays. I felt like the operation of the offense was much smoother. I felt like Dylan looked better than he had because he kind of went through.
Flow.
Yes, the flow of everything went better. I thought it was just smoother. Like Satterfield's a nice guy, but, I never felt like his offenses flowed. And I definitely felt like things flowed with the Holgerson calling the offense and stuff. So that was a tough one to watch because there were 4 dropped interceptions or something. I mean, if Maeva plays like that, where he's throwing balls to the defense and hoping they drop them, USC is going to be in trouble. But anyway, their transfer portal class was 18th, ranked 18th, and their recruiting class was 13th. So they did get the Sam Heward kid from Utah at quarterback. So if Maeva sucks, Heward might be the guy. They got a receiver from Auburn, defensive end from A&M. So, I mean, it's a solid transfer portal class.
They're tough to figure out. If you look at last year's schedule, they beat LSU.
Yeah, first game of the year.
They lose to Michigan by 3. They hammer Wisconsin. They lose to Minnesota. They only lose to Penn State by 3, 33-30. They lose to Maryland.
That's insane.
They lose to Washington, and they beat Nebraska by 8. And they barely beat UCLA, and they got pretty good by Notre Dame. And then they beat Texas A&M pretty good in the Las Vegas Bowl. And at that point, Texas A&M was actually, I don't know who played in that bowl game, but Texas A&M was playing really good, I think, though, right? Towards the end of last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, Texas A&M, boatload of guys, nobody played.
Nobody played, yeah. So the bowl game means nothing.
Yeah.
It's a tough read. I'm actually going to call Nebraska win on this one not just because of how much I hate Lincoln Riley, although that definitely plays about 30% into it, but also because it's in Lincoln, and I don't know. I just have this feeling USC is going to play unmotivated.
What is what I should have looked up was USC's schedule next year.
I got it right in front of me. They play Notre Dame.
How many times do they come east of the Mississippi?
Okay, now you're going to have to make me do some serious research here.
USC's not even in the top 25 preseason rankings by almost anybody.
So they have a bye.
That's what's weird.
Nebraska. That sucks. But they played Notre Dame that previous game. They've got Michigan at home. So they play Illinois in September, and they play at Purdue in September. Other than that, there's nothing.
Okay, that sucks.
Everything else is at home for them. They have Iowa at home. They have Northwestern. But I don't care. I just think Nebraska's due to beat them. I really do. I just feel it in my bones. They're just going to beat them this time. It's probably going to be super close. But please,
I think you post all over the locker room wall. We've never beat these guys. What the F? We're 0-5 against these guys? Come on. That's ridiculous. And so I think the motivation is there. I don't think you really need motivation per se. If you do, you're in the wrong sport. But
I agree with that. And I'm not sure I would put that we were 0-for against somebody on the wall, just because that could be a negative reinforcement and be like, oh, we've never beat these guys. You know what I mean? I don't, but I would definitely.
You could just put 0-4-1.
Yeah.
Like a Ted Lasso that right over the locker room door. 0-4-1. How does it feel?
Yeah. And
UCLA's not that good. USC is just not that good, and they're so inconsistent. They're kind of just they've been a better version of Nebraska. Nebraska's just so inconsistent.
I feel like they ride their reputation. They're sort I don't know. They're always kind of an ESPN darling. Like you never really hear ESPN talking bad about them.
Well, and I think that just carried over from when they were so good.
Well, and for
But that's
whatever
been a long
reason,
time.
like
I
even
know,
when they
but
call,
you're right. It is a brand. It's a name thing.
and even when they like talk about and they call out Lincoln Riley's coaching record the last few years, they always give him a pass. Essentially, I mean, and that drives me crazy. I'm like, what has this guy proven? I mean, he had the number 1 draft pick in the NFL, and they barely
And they
went
were
500
terrible.
that year.
They were terrible.
They were not good. And his defenses are usually not good. So that means that my guess is this will be a high scoring game. And I would guess it'd be something like 38-24, Nebraska is what I'm thinking. Because I think Nebraska is going to finally start scoring this year. Like I truly, truly believe that we have the key players at receiver and running back, and then Dylan getting a year better and having another, off season to work with Holgerson and everything.
Yeah.
And then we have Holgerson as well, whose offenses always score. So I expect Nebraska to start scoring some points this year, like more like we used to, because like the last couple of years before this, like, getting over 20 points seemed to be a struggle. And I don't expect that this year. I expect us to average, around 28 or more points, frankly. Like if we don't average 28, I'll be a little disappointed, because I truly think that we should be able to score like that on anybody. So yeah,
I don't think this would be a statement win, but I think it would be a really important win. I think the Michigan game would be a statement win.
Yeah.
But at this point, if they're 7-2 in the season, but they've beaten USC, I'd still be.
I'd be jacked for sure. Josh, any final thoughts on USC?
Nope.
Next game is the next week, November 8th. They will go to California to the Rose Bowl, so they'll be playing UCLA. UCLA now has the infamous Nico Iamaleava playing quarterback for them. He threw for 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 65% completion percentage. He will be significantly poorer than he would have been had he stayed at Tennessee. So he might be driving, in a
I thought they didn't pay him. I thought they weren't paying him what he wasn't that the whole reason he left, is because they stiffed him?
They wouldn't increase what they were paying
he asked
him.
for an increase.
He asked for an increase. And most people, like, I kind of feel for Nico, because I get the feeling that it was driven by his dad and some agent guy, and that Nico ended up sort of being the guy in the middle of it. I think he kind of got caught in the middle. I don't feel sorry for him necessarily, but like he definitely asked to make more money than the 2.2 or whatever he was making. And Tennessee was like, don't let the door hit you, where the good Lord split you. And, sent him packing. And then he's making, off the top, he's making, I think it's $700,000 less, $600,000 less, because he's making like 1.5. But then you add California taxes and stuff onto it, he's going to end up clearing about 750 grand, when he probably would have cleared closer to 1.8 or 1.9 after taxes in Tennessee. That's up to him.
UCLA also has a bye before playing Nebraska.
What is that all about? Their transfer portal class was 20th, and their recruiting class was 46th. I'm guessing the transfer portal class got a bump because of Nico himself, because I think, would have been the top-ranked quarterback. Yeah. So I'm guessing that got a huge bump, which means that, doesn't have to be phenomenal. I feel like, I mean, if we're talking and they're, like, let's say they somehow were at this point 9-0 going into that game, I think they mud stomp UCLA. I think they're going to be pissed about what happened last year. And so, in any case,
a game that makes me nervous. I don't know, UCLA.
It does to me too.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes me nervous, but I think that I just think that they should, especially if they are, like we said, 9-0, or if they're 7-2, so got to speed this up a little bit, because we are going a little bit long. So, let's see here. Penn State.
Well, wait, what are you guys calling this game?
UCLA? I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to say it's a W. I think they could legitimately be 10-0 at this point. Like, I personally think they could. If not, they could be 9-1 at this point after this game.
I struggle because I don't think that they are going to get through these teams that are sort of been at their same level. The middle of the pack teams. I think they should beat them all, but I just think statistically they're not going to. I don't know where to call those losses is the problem. I think each of these games they could win, except for maybe Penn State. But so I struggle to know where to assign the losses. But I think overall they'll lose. I think they'll lose at least 3. I hate saying
Calling
that.
this one an L just because I don't feel good about it.
The UCLA game. Okay. So next game, Penn State. It's in University Park. It's in Pennsylvania at Beaver Stadium. I'm guessing it will be a whiteout if Nebraska is anything decent. If they've got 1, 2, or 0 losses going into that game will be massively huge. Penn State, I think, is absolutely the top quality team on the schedule this year. I think they're the best team that they'll play. They'll play them away. I would call an L on this one, and that's me. They have surprising decent success against Penn State. They've played 13 times. Nebraska's won 6, Penn State's won 7. But Drew Aller is considered probably the best quarterback in the nation right now by a lot of people. They've got a solid running game. They got a big offensive line. They had a great recruiting class. Their transfer portal class was only ranked 52nd. That's interesting, but it may be because they didn't take a lot of transfers and didn't need them because they retained a lot of guys. I didn't look into that, but that could be why. So what about you guys? Where do you fall on this game?
Yeah, it's a loss.
And then the last game, Iowa will be the day after Thanksgiving, Friday, November 28th. Minnesota game, by the way, is also a Friday night game. That's at 8 p.m. on the 17th.
Or are we freaking Big 12? Like, what the F?
Yeah. So that game is a Friday night game. Anyway, Iowa's a Friday game. Usually, I think it's already scheduled for noon Eastern time. It is in Lincoln. And
it better be a freaking blowout. I don't care what you lose or win on the schedule. If you lose to Iowa, the season sucks.
In Lincoln, yes.
This is like this is like the Michigan Ohio State game. He had to freaking win the national championship to save his job from losing 5 times in a row to Michigan. I feel like Iowa is that for Nebraska. If they freaking lose this game, I'll be so effing pissed. It'll ruin everything. It'll ruin Thanksgiving for the entire family. Just kidding. They better be up and they better freaking just boat race these a-holes.
They get a win in this series. It's so frustrating that we haven't had more success against Iowa, and most of the games have all been really, really close the whole time we've been playing them, and I'm sick and tired of losing things where last year's game, they literally one freaking play lost that game, and how you lose, like your defense is just stellar all game. And they have one play where that stinking running back hits the edge on that sweep, and it just so frustrating. Anyway, yeah, I'm with you. They'd better like boat race this team. So just to wrap it up, for me, I'll let you guys throw your 2 cents in there. So through my scarlet colored glasses, I believe this is actually going to be an 11-1 season. I can see them. This is the kind of season that Rule has in year 3 where, people don't necessarily expect it, but he runs, he rides that. He's done it. I think he's been like 10-2 or 9-3, but I can see them doing one better. I actually think that 11-1 is attainable. I also believe that given, kind of the history of the team, it would not shock me if they were 8-5. That's my floor and my ceiling. I can see them being 8-5 or 11-1. So that's just my thoughts. At 11-1, you could make the Big Ten playoff, or the Big Ten championship game. That would be interesting. But anyway, your guys' thoughts on the season.
I don't know about 11-1, but I also agree that it could be anywhere from 8-5 to 10-2. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I'm just going to try not to expect anything, and that way I won't be disappointed. And I hate that that's kind of where it is, but like, there's just been too many seasons in a row where you just everything is there for the taking and they don't take it, and so they gotta prove that they can, and so that's why I hold out. I think it's somewhere in the middle. I'm thinking 3 losses, like I said.
Okay, Andrew.
Well, my heart says 12-0. My head says 9-4. No,
that would be 13 games.
9-3, 8-4.
Bowl game
would make it.
Can't lose.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, you guys. when you're kind of in that middle ground, that middle area where you make a decent bowl, but like, you're not really relevant at all. It comes down to who did you beat. It's going to kick whether or not that's going to determine like you're still taking steps forward or not. And that was the issue with Pelini over and over and over, is that he had the 9-3 seasons and they weren't really relevant. More than, I mean, a few years they were, but like not very many. Let's be honest.
Right.
Well, I think that's where the that's going to be the determining factor on what feels like a successful season. I hate that term, but like what feels like moving forward still under Rule. And I think more than three losses sounds. It almost seems more plausible to have three or fewer than to have more than three with the schedule. And I really think it's definitely like possible. So I'm going to say 9-3.
Cool. All right, well, I'm going to get this done here. Helmet Nation, quick shout out again to our sponsor. Not only do they sell collectible helmets, they also build custom helmets for youth teams, high schools, small colleges, military units. Josh has one here that he tried to show off last week and then wasn't on camera. Small colleges, military units, and businesses. If you got a logo, a vision, or just a wild idea, they can make it happen. These helmets are top quality, built on authentic Rydell shells and made with attention to detail only a veteran-owned company brings. Hit up helmetnation.com and bring your team's look to life. So that's a wrap on episode 3 of Brothers Trippin and Stuff. If you enjoyed today's episode, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Give us a shout out on social media. We are going to be loading this up. Hopefully here in the, when this one's loaded up, we're going to be have it on all the podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everything else. That's what we're aiming to start doing here. So you can find us anywhere. You can also find us on Instagram at Brothers Trippin Pod, and then we'll start posting some social media on there and everything else, and show some love to our sponsor, Helmet Nation. Follow them on YouTube and Instagram at Helmet Nation _LLC, and check out their custom and collectible helmets at helmetnation.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with more football, more nonsense, more banter. Until then, have a great day, guys. Thanks, guys.
Good
See you
talking to
guys
you.
in 2 weeks.